Hi and welcome. So today I want to share with you a little bit more about the emotions in your emotional eating patterns. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and I specialize in emotional eating. And so emotional eating, part of it has to do with our emotions, and emotional eating in and of itself is a coping mechanism. So it's a way we cope with our emotions, which means whenever any discomfort, distress, uncomfortable emotions come up, or maybe even sometimes, the comfortable ones or the happiness or the joy, whatever emotion comes up, we use food to soothe ourselves. We use food to numb or distract ourselves because we don't know how to be with these emotions. We don't know how to move through them. We don't even know what they're about. And so, this is not something we're taught in our society. It's something our parents or caregivers would not have taught us. And it's kind of sad because developmentally, this is something that we need. We need to understand our emotions. Emotions are biochemicals that are secreted in the body. They create sensations and we have a certain feeling with them and messages with them. So they're really important information for us as a physical person, as a biological specimen, let's say, if we want to boil it down to that level. And those emotions, those sensations are telling us which direction we need to go in. So for us, emotional eating has become this coping mechanism, and the pattern I see with clients is that this begins in childhood when we didn't know how to move through our emotions. We are feeling all this discomfort and we have no clue what to do. We don't know how to move through it. And so we would have needed our parents or caregivers developmentally to help us move through the discomfort of whatever was coming up and to hear the messages, to sort of hear the information and to make decisions from that information. But first we needed to actually move through the emotions. And so something when we're developing, when we're very young as children, it's almost, you can say our brain has two modes. It can be in the emotional mode or in the rational mode. And the way to access the rational mode as a child is to go through the emotional mode, which is usually really uncomfortable for most parents. And so going through the emotional mode, we actually need to be with, process, and integrate those emotions. And in doing that, it calms our nervous system. And in this calm state, we can then start rationalizing and creating a new way forward. But as children, we wouldn't have had parents or caregivers that would have done that for us, especially if we have this emotional eating pattern. They might have emotionally eaten themselves. They might have had other addictions. They might have distracted from their own emotions. They might have shamed you for your emotions or told you to stop being, whatever emotion that was happening. And in those moments when we are shamed or told we're too sensitive, we do shut down, and those emotions don't go away. We kind of push them into our body and we suppress them, and we still feel some of that discomfort and we need an out. And that's how we create these patterns like emotional eating. And what we needed was to move through those emotions, to feel them, process, move through them, resolve them, and find a new way forward. Part of that process is to find, listen to the information and create a new way forward to help that emotion dissipate. But what happens is that this emotion, this discomfort lingers and we emotionally eat. And we use food to soothe ourselves because it does give us sort of a dopamine hit. Food is pleasurable. It tastes good. We're getting, every time this discomfort comes up, our brain now says to eat because that's the only way we know to soothe ourselves. We don't know what we actually need to move through that discomfort. And so this is a process. It's not just, I know I'm sad and I emotionally eat. There's an underlying process going on with this. And so we need to understand at sort of a basic level that emotions are important. They're information, and we are going to feel things in response to our environment, in response to a person, in response to a temperature, in response to the weather. We're going to feel something in our body. We're going to feel some kind of maybe discomfort or I don't like it. And that's information. We're getting information about what we like and dislike in our life. And let's say anger pops up, that's telling us we have a boundary that's being crossed. Or sadness pops up, it's telling us something hurt us. And so as we move through that emotion, it's going to help us gain insight and information. And when we're very young, we, our idea of the world, let's say our conception of the world is a very black or white, and we're very sensitive. And so if our emotions are shamed or something, happens to us, we create stories around that. And so we're using food to numb and soothe ourselves, but we also have limiting beliefs with that. So we won't allow ourselves to feel an emotion because we might have felt shame around it. So I had an example with a client recently, and she wouldn't express her needs, which were coming from her emotions, her vulnerabilities. They were telling her needs out of, she felt hurt or sad, and she had a need that arose from that of needing to have a parent or caregiver close by. She needed that comfort and that soothing. But when she expressed that, she was laughed at by her siblings who were left to care for her. And so her, as a child, what came up as a solution for her was to shut down her emotions, to not show her sensitivity. And so to do anything possible to not ever have that reaction, that laughing, because that created shame and disconnection. And so as children, this is happening. And unless we have our parents or caregivers there to really attune to us, to see this is happening and to help us move through this and to reinforce time and again what we need to be that container for us, we fall into these sort of rabbit holes and we are trying to survive. And in a case like this, our parents are on a spectrum of knowing or recognizing what's happening for us or attuning to us, and so we can be left in these cycles, and it's perpetuated generation to generation, and we don't ever know what to do. And so we are left with these coping mechanisms. We're using food, we're people pleasing, we're using behaviors to survive because we don't actually know what to do with these emotions, how to listen to them, integrate them, and process them. And so we're using food, and then the solutions that are sold to us are around diet and exercise because we don't feel good in our body. We think if we look a certain way, we'll be accepted. We think and not feel shamed. If we do this, maybe we'll have someone like us. And so if we people please or whatever, we're trying to get our needs met of being accepted, seen, heard, validated, but we don't actually have that genuinely given to us. And so we're trying to figure that out. And so the discomfort of that, those needs not being met, we go towards food, or we try different sort of ways, maybe doing the diet and restricting, punishing ourselves at the gym to fit into a certain body because we're not meeting those deeper needs. And they just pile on top of each other. It becomes layer after layer after layer, and we lose touch with what we really needed. And it doesn't mean it disappears. Deep down under the layers, so when I do this work with clients, we're peeling back the layers around food, our body, our emotions, and when we get into these deeper layers, that part of you still exists, but now we need more powerful tools in a certain way to access that because we have a lot of protections and limiting beliefs and ways of being that are not helping us get to that level. It can be easy to say to feel sad or feel your emotions, but if we have a lot of trauma around that, we have a lot of protection, it's harder to access those deeper levels. And so we need to do this in a way that is going to help us get to those levels. And so when I work with clients, we're sort of working on multiple levels. We're working in the areas of food, body, and our emotions because these areas tie into the emotional eating pattern. Really, like I mentioned, it's coming from, this emotional realm. But at this point, our relationship to food, our body, and our emotions, they're all out of balance. And so our relationship to food is skewed because now we're restricting and contorting around food and then using food to soothe. So it's a really unhealthy relationship to food that we need to rebuild and shift to a more abundant way of being with food. We are having this around our body because now we're sort of associating our worth and our value and our acceptance to a body or looking a certain way. And we might have been given messages of that as well if our deeper needs were not met. And so we have a lot of shame around that. We don't really understand our body and we need to shift that as well. And so whatever we can't sort of shift with sort of one level of shifting our beliefs, we have to do the deeper trauma work, maybe around even our body and into the emotions that are creating this emotional eating pattern that are being triggered. And then we're going to food to soothe because we haven't learned how to regulate our nervous system, process and integrate these emotions, and then to move forward in a new way that actually meets our true needs, that will dissolve this pattern so that we're no longer using food as a band-aid or exercise as a band-aid or our body as a band-aid. We're actually meeting our true needs and connecting to our body, food, our emotions in this healthy way. And that really shifts, on a physical level, our nervous system from a fight or flight, because we're in survival mode, to rest and digest, which is a mode of health and turning on wellness and ease and peace in our body. And so this is important to understand about emotions. So our emotions, we need to really start looking at them in this different way, that they're information and they're meant to be processed and integrated in a certain way. And inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program, that's what we're doing through the somatic meditations with psychotherapy tools. This is an embodied process. It's something that I can't just simply talk to you about. It's a process that is modeled to you. It's about holding space. It's about, actually feeling through what's going on and having a way to resolve it at the end. And also working through all the limitations and the relationships we have to food and our body and our emotions that are limiting us, that are the old way. And when we move into this new way of being with those areas, this starts shifting the emotional eating pattern and we start resolving our emotional eating from the root. So if this is resonating for you, I would love to invite you to find out more about the Emotional Eating Evolution program. It is a step-by-step methodology. The program is a 12-week container full of lots of support and accountability, the in-depth somatic meditations to move through this pattern, and to support you and start seeing where your triggers are and where this pattern is popping up, so we can really start resolving it at the root so that you can finally feel confident in your body and around food. This is all to shift as we shift the nervous system from fight or flight to rest and digest. That naturally shifts to more ease and confidence. So if this is of interest to you, you can find out more about the program below. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And I hope you have a great